Hello all and welcome back to another wonderful video. Today I'm here standing on this strange symbol because today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be explaining to you guys how fireflies work in the game. That's right, fireflies work a very specific way, and some of you are probably curious, some of you have probably already discovered how they work. But in today's video, I'm going to explain to you how fireflies work, what you can do with the new Firefly lanterns. That's right, the new Firefly lanterns. As well, I'm going to be explaining to you guys 3 little mini game ideas that I thought of basically immediately, and thought about ideas on what little mini games you can do with these fireflies, because this is a new mechanic, and all new mechanics usually lead to new mini games. So let's go ahead and start by explaining how they work. You can get these Firefly lanterns at the new marketplace. If this video comes out and the lanterns are available on the build menu, then I've just made this video that far in advance. You know what? Currently, these aren't available in the build menu. If they are available by the time you're watching this video, then that's just because the devs were generous enough to finally give them to us in the build menu. So you have to go to the marketplace. There are some that are already full, such as the one that I'm holding now, and there's some that are empty, such as this one that I'm holding now. That's right, I'm now holding an empty one. Basically, if you have an empty one and you find a firefly, such as this one here, that's just randomly out at night, you can go up to it, you can press E on your keyboard, or you can click on it, and it will give you that firefly. It'll put it right in your Firefly lantern and it will light up. The lantern, by the way, the color actually matters. The color of the lantern actually matters. For example, I have a blue one here, but if I switch characters to, let's say, this other Skelebones, I now have a green one and my light is now green. The color of your lantern does matter. If you have a firefly and a green lantern, you get green light, and so on with all the other colors. But like I said, you can release them as well. If you want to release them, you can press the action button or the action use item interact button down here in the bottom of your screen if you have it. As well, you can of course you can also press E on your keyboard, which is the easiest way to do it. At night, if you release them like I just did there, basically they'll move into a random direction, and eventually they'll despawn because they'll reach a tree or something like that, or it'll become day, and eventually they'll despawn like normal. During the day, if you release them, they essentially go to the nearest tree, and they despawn once they reach that nearest tree. This means we can play around with this mechanic and do all kinds of fun things. For example, I have this weird pattern around me with several different points, several of these little white carpets. There's meant to be one here too, but please ignore my unpreparedness. Essentially, this first minigame idea is quite simple. You play this one at night, you get a firefly, and you release it. You have one player in the middle that releases it, and then there is a player on every single one of these white squares, and the player is not allowed to leave those white squares until they get a firefly. Once they collect a firefly, let's say it goes all the way over here to this one, they can then either try to move towards the middle, and whoever is the last one to get to the middle wins, or it can just be a simple game of how many of these can you collect. So I caught this one, now I release it, no one's allowed to collect it anymore, and then the person in the middle does the same thing until everyone has one, until everyone has one except one person. There's many different things that you can do with this, but I do like the idea of you just release it, and then like, see, look at that, it's going straight to the top left, and imagine I'm here in this top left, it's like, oh, heck yeah, this is perfect, heck yeah, and then they collect it, and then boom, they get to move forward one space or something like that, right? That's a fun way to do this. As well, of course, like I said before, it could just be as simple as, I collected this, I win this round, we do another round over and over again until we're finally finished. So that's the first mini game there. It's a pretty simple thing. It's extremely easy to set up, but meanwhile, the other 2 games are not going to be as simple to set up, because the other 2 games are pretty much going to have to require it to be day, because you have to take advantage of the tree mechanic. That's right, if you release a firefly during the day, they try to go to the nearest tree, and so that means you can actually control where the fireflies will go, but you can only do that during the day, of course. So we'll explain that minigame once it becomes day, but first, let's go ahead and explain this one here, because this one we can do during the night or do during the day. This one is very similar to the first one that I explained before, except this one, you build a very complicated maze like this. You can have the player in the middle like this, and then you can release the firefly, and since it's moving pretty much randomly, the players can then enter the maze and try to be the first one to get into the maze and collect it, and whoever does that and then also gets to the middle would win, right? That's a fun little thing there. There's all kinds of little races that you can do. You can, of course, set up this maze however you want. Please ignore the fact that mine is absolutely terrible and not very maze-like. I am not very prepared, as we discovered earlier, but also I'm not very good at mazes, so anyone out there that is really good at mazes, I imagine, would have a lot more fun setting up a maze like this and just releasing a firefly, waiting for it to go into a random direction, and then having the players try to enter the maze and get it before it escapes. This one looks like it's gonna escape. There we go, I collected it. I got the Firefly back. You can also do this differently. For example, it is starting to become day. So if I was to, let's say, switch back to a character that I can place an item without losing my thing, we can put a tree right here in the very middle, and then we can switch back to that same Skella. Now that it's day, or at least somewhat day, the Fireflies should be attracted to this tree since it's the nearest one. I release the Firefly, and it's going straight to the tree. This is another thing that you can do with this same setup. You can have a tree in the very middle of a maze, and then have players outside the maze throwing Fireflies into the middle or something like that. And then, of course, players that are inside the maze are moving all around the maze and stuff like that, trying to collect the Fireflies before it can get to the tree and despawn. So that's another little thing that you can do. Of course, once we get little Firefly lanterns added to the build menu, you can of course add these empty Firefly lanterns all over the maze or whatever, and have it so that when you grab one, you tally up the score somewhere off screen somewhere, and then of course you pick up a new lantern after dropping the initial one or something. So there's all kinds of fun little things like that that you can do with and stuff. There's many little interesting things that you can do, especially just given like the maze idea alone. But now let's move into the last one, and my favorite one because it is now day. Okay, so you're just gonna have to ignore the fact that everything seems slightly different because I had to record this on a different day, but here is the final game, the third little game. It's actually very simple and very easy, but it can only be played during the day. As we discussed earlier, you can abuse the direction that the Fireflies take during the day, because during the day, if you release a Firefly on your island, they will try to go to the nearest tree, which means you can place a tree somewhere, and if it's the only tree on your island, the Firefly will go directly towards it. By doing that, by taking advantage of this mechanic, we can actually create a minigame based around it. This is the minigame here. It's a very simple setup. All you need is 3, 4, 5, however many of these little streaks that you want, these little lines, these red lines, and things like that. You can build little paths and little courses and stuff like that, like I've done here with the barrels, and you can do something as simple as, hey, release the Firefly, then run around the course and try to catch it on the second thing before your opponents get it or whatever, and then do that again and again and again and again until you finally get captured, released, captured on the next line, and then release and capture on the last line. You can do something very similar to that if you really wanted to. But another mini game, and this is actually something that I did in my last live stream, but it is very simple, and I'm gonna actually put up some diagrams and use all kinds of weird examples and stuff like that to actually make it much more easy for you to understand. So starting off, this is a team game, so however many lines you have is how many teammates you need to have on your team. For example, I have 4 red lines here, which means I need 4 people on my team, including the team captain. I will be the team captain in this example, and we'll just show just one team for now, but just keep in mind that this would technically be multiple teams. So of course you have the team captain on this main red line here, the very first one on the far right, and then of course you could also swap this as well, so the team captain could be on the very left, but then the tree would have to be on the far right. You could swap this if you wanted to. I just did it this way. I don't even know why I just did it this way. I just did it this way for no reason, really. But anyway, the team captain will have a Firefly lantern. It will actually have a Firefly inside of it. The other teammates will not have a Firefly in their lantern. They'll just have an empty lantern that can collect Fireflies, and they will each stand on one single line. Now, they're not allowed to leave that line. They can move up and down, all around their line or whatever like that, but they cannot move all of their line. If they do, then that's more or less a penalty, and that's technically cheating, and if they catch the Firefly, it doesn't count if they leave the red line or whatever. Once you're ready to start the game, you'll do a 3, 2, 1 countdown thing. It doesn't matter. You'll just say go, and on go, the team captain will release the Fireflies. And the teammate on the first red line will have to try and catch that Firefly. If they succeed in doing so, that's more or less 1 point, and once they do succeed in doing so, they must then release it shortly after, so that the teammate on the third line can then capture it and get another point for your team. Once you do that, the person on the third line will then also have to release it and hope that the person on the fourth line catches it. Once someone on the fourth line catches it, then the game more or less ends, and you have to take very careful account into how many times it was captured for that team, as well as all this other stuff. But essentially, you get a point for each time you've captured and released as your team, and then you win and stuff like that if the final teammate catches the Firefly. It's almost like a little race, and it's very fun and interesting and stuff like that. We actually played this on my stream a few days ago, probably a week ago at this point. I don't know when this video is going to come out, so don't hurt me, but It's very simple. It's extremely easy, and that is pretty much all there is to it. So yeah, that's literally it. So that's all the little games, and now we can go back to the original cut of this video. There's all kinds of little things that you can do, and I hope this was cohesive and understandable enough for you to get started playing your own little mini games with the Fireflies. But for now, this seems to be some pretty simple little games that you can do using the Firefly lantern. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was cohesive enough for you. Yeah, there you have it. I do hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing. I do videos like this all the time where I just either share little games or ideas of things that you can do in Ponytown, or just other Ponytown videos such as random gameplay stuff, or of course update stuff. People usually know me for the update Ponytown guy, so I do that as well. But I do all kinds of Ponytown videos. I even do some VR chat stuff every now and again. So I'd love to have you on the channel, and if you liked what you saw, please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and doing all those wonderful things like that, because when you do those wonderful things, not only you get access to wonderful content such as this, but you also get to become wonderful yourself, and I think we all want that. So do those wonderful things, and until next time, stay wonderful.